So you said like Bitcoin or whatever, Visa does whatever, 30,000 transactions per second, like whatever that number is, it doesn't really matter. First of all, for me, let's just think about it, right? So with technology, it needs to be 100 times, it needs to be 1,000 times better, right? We don't really like improvement offers. But if I go to a merchant and I want to run my Visa or my credit card, whatever, it probably takes, I haven't really timed it, I don't know, 30 or 45 seconds for me to sit there and wait for that to go through, right? Roughly 30, 45 seconds ish, something like that. Before they, print it and get me the receipt and have to sign it, whatever. But the merchant now not only has to pay the fees, whatever, 2, 3%, 4%, depending on their risk, plus their statement fees, et cetera, et cetera. And then they don't get the money for maybe 72 hours, roughly, right? So what we've done, technology has sped up our transaction times. We now have instant transactions, but we still don't have instant settlement. So the discrepancy between transaction and settlement has grown massively wide. So as a merchant, one, my customer experience is slow. There's friction. Two, I have to pay exorbitant fees. And three, I don't get my money for long periods of time, and time is money. So the faster I can get my money, the better. Now, if I wanted to accept the transaction over Lightning, which I've done many of these Lightning transactions, like in El Salvador, or just even at conferences and events and things like that, like literally, like before I pull my finger off the button, like the transaction's already there. It's not 30 seconds or 45 seconds, it's 2 seconds. And on top of that, then the merchant receives final settlement, not just settlement, but final settlement immediately, and with no fees. So it seems like it's 100x or 1,000 times improvement to me. It seems like we've been hearing about for years, like, oh my gosh, okay, it's coming. NCR Strike told us 2 years ago. NCR, the 1 in 6 payment processors, one in 6 merchants use them as payment processors. They're going to integrate this in there, and it is a good idea whose time has come. It is 100x or 1,000 times better. I mean, one, I guess, do you see it being that much better? And two, if so, then what do you think is the big roadblock holding it back? And three, where do you think, what kind of time frame or what is it going to take to see kind of more adoption there?
I think the best way to approach it is to look at history. It took Visa and Mastercard 52 years to get 7 credit cards in everybody's pocket. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of advertising at every major sports event. American Express has its own program for more wealthy people. Look, adoption's hard, man. Okay, like scaling adoption, global adoption. Visa, MasterCard have been massively ineffective in China. Massively, okay? The only place chargebacks take place is in the Visa, MasterCard system. So this does not happen in the East, okay? I mean, I had built $500 million business on a problem that only exists under the MasterCard and Visa. I think the adoption is going to be a lot slower than we think because I think people misunderstand how adoption occurs. And I'm quite certain that the decentralized state of Bitcoin's marketing department hasn't helped because you have a bunch of people walking around talking, and I think people think that people that are talking about Bitcoin represent Bitcoin. But there's been a lot of misinformation out there, and we've missed every target we've set out there. Like you said, like Jack said, hey, we're going to be in payments. You might be, dude, but like not tomorrow morning, okay? So I think where this happens is that when retailers get smart and they start offering discounts to the analog world, like, hey, I'll take it's $100 for this transaction, or it's $95 if you use digital. And the Lightning piece, like you know better than me, Mark, when is it going to be ready for prime time? Because 50 million merchants are on planet Earth, and I think they're declining. That is a lot of coverage. In order to get real adoption, you have to make all those merchants capable of being able to receive this new money, currency, digit, allocation, audit, ledger, whatever you want to call it. And I don't think it needs to settle tomorrow, like instantly, okay? When the settlement process for Visa and MasterCard is 6 months. So you go wipe a transaction on Sony or Apple tomorrow morning, you literally have 6 months to say, hey,
Because that's the chargeback period. 6 months to charge it back on your credit card.
with absolutely no proof. You can literally say, not mine, 6 months later, and you might not win that. You might not get it reversed, but you're going to cause a pain in the ass for the merchant and for everybody in the food chain. Like when you do that, it sends a ripple through the whole food chain. That's not going to occur in digital, and that's extremely valuable and efficient if we can stop the abuse that's going on, whether it's meant to be abuse or whether it's just an error. It's nonetheless a lot of friction.
And what is the, you had told me the number before, like the financial impact of those chargebacks in the industry. I mean, it's in the billions, tens of billions.
Oh, I think we're talking about over $1 trillion of losses a year, dude. Trillion.
$1 trillion. Wow.
Big numbers. Oh, yeah, because, well, one thing that's really interesting is just try to go on Visa and Mastercard's public documents on their quarterly reports and find out how much they make just from fees, fines, and chargebacks. It's staggering to me that I have a $500 million business in the chargeback business, yet you can't. Now, I'm private. We were private at the time, still are. Can't see any of that data on Visa, MasterCard. That's interesting. I think they're making $1 billion in net income every year for sure, both of them, from fraud, calling things fraud. They're not fraud. And if they are fraud, how the hell can you have nearly 700 million fraudulent events in the United States and European business? 700, that is what? 700 million, that's about 2,000 a day, I think, maybe 20,000 a day. How can you have that much fraud and Visa and MasterCard trade at a premium that is 5x Google's? 5x ExxonMobil's and 2.5 times the valuation of Google. It seems odd to me, okay? A duopoly, they have 72% of the entire plastic market. And I think you're talking about 656 million unit events. You're talking about $106 price. You're talking about another $300. Every time a merchant gets a $100 chargeback, it has cost him $350. Okay, how does he ever come out of that? And refunds are going up. So the system's broken, okay? Visa's big pitch was increase refunds, make refunds easy peasy. Guess what refunds did? Refunds went from 1.5% to 2% to 8%, and chargebacks went straight up, did absolutely nothing. You have to educate the consumer. You have to educate the consumer. And the trick, back to your question, the trick for Visa and MasterCard, which stops most foreign payment companies coming in the United States, they used the chargeback mechanism in 1972 to create adoption. That was the only way they could get you and your wife into the store and go, hey, let's move off of cash and checks. We want you to hold this little plastic. That was what that's what they used adoption for. You have 7 cards in your pocket now. Real or virtual? Dude, adoption's occurred. Take the chargeback mechanism away and make the consumer responsible for what he does when he clicks a button. Okay, you and I do a deal online. It's a legally binding contract, right? Yeah. Like, didn't we sign a legally binding contract? I did it electronically. I said yes. I read the terms and conditions, supposedly. And then we have another third party decide, yeah, that legal contract's no longer valid. Like, that's crazy, right?